Hey everyone, it's Blar, and in this video, I'm going to be going over how to read the 6 Solaris 2 layouts. Now, before continuing, I want to mention that all the images used in this video will be linked in the description below, and you can rely solely on the album of images to learn how to read Solaris 2. The rest of the video is designed to help jumpstart your learning comprehension about the layouts. So, with that being said, we're going to do a layout crash course. We'll go over how to read and identify all 6 layouts. And then after the crash course, we will do a guided walkthrough where I will go through each of the layouts and you can see my read process in real time as I navigate the layout. So, with that being said, let's get started. So, Solaris 2 has 6 layouts. There are 3 different starting orientations, which will be very helpful in allowing us to rapidly identify what layout we're in. We first have the split start. The split start essentially has this pattern. The bottom of the stairs will point to the right here, and like the little entrance or the landing of the stairs where the entrance is on will sort of be pointed to the right side of the map, the crook of the elbow, however you want to phrase it. So we'll have a split start where the bottom of the stairs will point one way, and sort of this crook of the elbow or the landing where the entrance is will point the other way. There are 3 layouts that have the split start: the arrow layout, the double link layout, and the quick U layout. Next, we have the double left starting orientation, and essentially we'll see that the bottom of the stairs will point to the left, and then sort of like the landing here, or the crook of the elbow, where the entrance is, will also be towards the left side or point towards the left. We have 2 layouts with this starting orientation: north line and left line. Finally, we have double right, where the bottom of the stairs will point to the right, and the landing, crook of the elbow, where the entrance is, will also be sort of oriented towards the right side. Now, there's another way to identify this simply, which is the entrance is below you when you enter. In split start and double left, the entrance will always be above you. Nonetheless, I typically will identify it by the way sort of both these things are pointing in terms of identifying double right. So our first layout is Arrow Solaris 2. It has a split start where we'll see the bottom of the stairs point to the left. The crook of the elbow, where the entrance landing is, will point to the right side. As we notice this, essentially we are going to travel southeast from the entrance, and we'll be able to continue on for 3 to 4 rooms, or a fair amount of distance, before being allowed to make our first downward turn. There's no other path for us to take in this layout until we can make this first downward turn. Once we can make this downward turn, we are going to travel along that left wall of the downward turn and wrap around the entire map, trying to adhere and follow it as best as possible, because it'll take us directly to Diala. Now, occasionally there is a skip that you can use from here to here. However, it's not always present, and typically it will require a longer movement skill like Lightning Warp, Smoke Mine, or Blink Arrow. Next, we have the double wing layout. It's very important to recognize this one because this one has just an absolutely massive dead end. So as long as you're familiar with this layout, your Solaris 2 times are going to improve a lot regardless. So it will have a split start again, where the bottom of the stairs point to the left, and then the crook of the elbow points to the right. As you sort of come out of these stairs and head downward just a little bit, you'll see essentially a gap where there's another hallway where you can skip over. This is very, very common in this layout, where you'll have an immediate skip. Very infrequently will you not have this skip. On top of that, there's also a second skip that's potentially present, but this one is not as consistent as this first immediate skip. The second one is from sort of this far left side or west side to over here. It just saves you a couple screens of essentially movement time. So when we get this layout, we're always going to try and skip this gap. If this little skip isn't here and the other skip isn't there, essentially we'll just wrap around here to go below the entrance, and once we do that, we're just going to follow essentially the upper wall or the right wall of the hallway where we've skipped to or wrapped around to, all the way around the map to find Diala. By doing this, essentially, and trying to keep this in mind with the split starts, with all split starts, essentially, you're always going to be pathing towards the left side of the map. By keeping this in mind with split starts, you're going to avoid, especially in double wing, this huge, massive dead end that just does not go anywhere. Next, we have the quick U layout, and in this layout, you'll have a split start. We won't see a skip for the most part. Very rarely you can see a skip, but it will be different than the skip that you have in double wing because the skip will be a bit longer. And the other major difference is essentially how long it takes you to actually make this U is a little bit like you make a U shape. You don't ever really make a U shape in double wing, but as you're sort of hugging this wall up and around, like the majority of the time you're hugging the wall up and around, it's in the process of sort of making the bottom of this U here, right? So as we're making this U, we'll notice, or as we're doing this layout, excuse me, we'll have the split start. We'll head southeast from the entrance because that's the only way we can go. And then we'll turn down as soon as we can. Now, the big difference between quick U and arrow is the fact that when you can turn downwards happens a lot quicker in quick U. So we turn downwards and we'll just follow that left wall of the downward turn all the way around the map to find Diala. Next, we have our first double left layout. So we have a double left start. The bottom of the stairs point to the left, and sort of the landing, crook the elbow, entrance, however you want to phrase it, also points to the left. With north line, we will be forced essentially to the northwest. This also happens in the other double left layout, which is left line. But how the map develops after we're forced to the northwest varies in both. What you want to do is you want to pay attention to how far you've traveled northwest. So for here, we'll pay attention roughly about 3 rooms after the entrance room. We'll come up to essentially a little junction where the difference between north line and left line is the fact that in north line, you won't be able to go left at all here. It's essentially blocked. You might have a little bit of left wiggle room, but it's not like a free left. In left line, after 3 rooms here, there's like this little area that we go to check will allow you to pretty much start veering left pretty hard right away. Once you get up to this point. So, because we're north line, we see that we're blocked to the left/west. From here, we know roughly at this point that the waypoint is going to be in a straight north line from where we are, and we're just going to try and doggedly sort of navigate along that north line around the map and just follow the path that exists within the map. And as we do this, we will end up where Diala is. One thing to mention is that occasionally there can be a vol bait area that looks a lot like left line. Right here, where my cursor is roughly where we do the 3-room check. In left line, you will be allowed to essentially go left at this point. Here, at best, you're just allowed to continue going northwest instead of left. In left line Solaris 2, we will have a double left layout start again. We'll be forced to the northwest. In approximately 3 rooms after this entrance room, we'll come to a point where we should be able to head freely to the left. If you can't head freely to the left, then you are going to be in north line. But because here we can head freely to the left for the most part, there might be like a small room here, but nonetheless you can see that there is a leftward path available that will allow you to travel in some significant manner left. You know you're going to be in left line. Once we know we're in left line and we can make that left, we're essentially just going to draw a line straight leftwards. It'll be roughly where the waypoint is, and we're going to try and doggedly navigate along that line to get to the waypoint, navigating around however many halls or what the halls look like that we see to find the waypoint, and then subsequently Diala. Lastly, we have the right stairs Solaris 2. This is the only double right layout. Essentially, we will see the bottom of the stairs point to the right, and the entrance here point to the right as well. I also mentioned the one tip I don't really use, but you can reference it, where this is the only layout where you will spawn in and be above the entrance, and the other two starting orientations, you will be below the entrance. Once we recognize that we're in right stairs Solaris 2, essentially the relationship between the entrance and the waypoint, or where Diala is essentially just going to be a straight right line. But to be able to path it, we're going to have to make a V. There are two ways of doing this, right? You can hug the top wall or you can hug the bottom wall. It'll both get you to the same spot. There are advantages to one approach versus the other. If you hug the top wall, you typically will end up with less little like bait like rooms that are not really connected to the path, and your path will typically be clear. Not always, typically. But on the downside, there is a vol side area that can spawn a little bit before the point where you turn upwards, so it kind of looks like you're supposed to turn upwards, but then it ends up being a vol side area and you get annoyed. So with that in mind, that's one reason not to follow top. On the other hand, if you follow the bottom wall all the way to the right and around, essentially you end up with a lot of small little like piddly rooms here that can end up taking some time as you try and like enter them and keep following this bottom wall. As a result of this, essentially we want to travel to the right in that V-shape like pattern as best we can, and it's helpful to try and adhere to the middle. And the way we can think about this is we kind of want to go like 7 or 8 screens, a pretty far distance, before then start heading upwards. Once we start heading upwards and to the right, we will find the waypoint in Diala pretty quickly. If you're ever confused about when you're supposed to turn upwards and to the right, you're essentially forced to, because there will be a southeast block that stops your movement entirely from going southeast, no matter whether you go up or down. So those are all the layouts and how to read them. Now let's go to the guided walkthrough. As I exit these stairs here, I'm paying attention to where the bottom of the stairs point and where this landing / crook / entrance, how you want to phrase it, points as well. Here we have a split start because the bottom of the stairs point to the left, and then the elbow / entrance landing points to the right side. Once we're in a split start, we're always going to check for this immediate skip. It's not there. Then we're going to head to the southeast and see how long before we can turn significantly downwards. If it takes a long time before we can start heading downwards for a few screens, then we are going to be in arrow. If we can start heading downwards for a few screens right away, we are going to be in quick U. Here, I'm heading downwards. It looks like I can keep heading downwards for a few screens. Now I'm being forced to wrap around, which means I'm going to be in quick U, and I'm going to hug this left wall around the entirety of the map as it develops to find Diala. Now, remember, with quick U, essentially the wrap portion where we're following this border is like the bottom of the U, and it takes the longest, but eventually we will get there anyways. Then here is where we want to go. Okay, we have a double right layout. There's only one layout where this happens, which is the right Solaris 2 layout. Remember, the bottom of the stairs point to the right, and then sort of like where these stairs point as they let out with the landing is to sort of the right side. The entrance is over there. And remember, the tip that I also mentioned before is that if you want to rely on this, you can to identify right stairs, but it's the only layout where you will be above the entrance. In both split starts and in double left starts, you will be below the entrance. So with a right Solaris 2, we are going to path to the right in roughly a V-shape manner. We're going to path to the southeast right, like head right to the southeast at first. We're going to do so for quite a long ways, like 7 to 8 screens or rooms. It'll be a pretty significant like jaunt down that way. before we can start heading upwards to find the waypoint. As we do so, we can either follow the top edge of the map or bottom edge. We're going to try and adhere as much as possible to the middle to see sort of how the layout develops. Here, I kind of get a little bit of a block, but you can see that I can just skip over it and keep continuing down along the path. I'll do so until I sort of get blocked to the southeast. I can't go down or like past it anyway, whether I'm going down or up. Here, I've reached that southeast block, and I'm also like, you know, 7-8 screens pretty far away from the entrance, which means I'm going to turn upwards to the right, head to the northeast, and I'll find the waypoint. And that is our little right V that I was talking about. Oh, I forgot to put a portal down. Not a big deal. All right, we have a split start. Bottom of the stairs point to the left. Crook of the stairs / entrance landing points to the right side. We're going to check for the skip. We don't see it. Because we don't see it, we're going to try and head down as soon as we can. And if we can head significantly down for a few screens, we know we're going to be, like right away, we're going to be in the quick queue. If it takes us a lot longer before we can head down a few screens, it's going to be the arrow layout. Let's see what happens. Here, we're able to head down a few screens already. This means this is going to be the quick queue layout. I'll follow this left wall that was right here, doggedly around the map to be able to find the area to turn up to go to the waypoint. There it is. All right, I have a double left start. The bottom of the stairs point to the left, and then this little entrance landing crook over here where the like upper level of the stairs point, it ends up pointing to the left side. That means I'm either in north line or left line, and I will be forced to the northwest, and I'm going to essentially check after 3 screens, or 3 rooms, excuse me, whether I can head to the left or not. Here, it kind of looks like, you know, I can't head to the left. However, I see content generation, and this is actually a little too soon to make this call. This is about 2 rooms, just a little bit of layout RNG. Here is the 3rd room, and I can already see that I can keep heading left up here, which means this is going to be left line. Once I know this is left line, I'm just going to try and doggedly sort of like make a left line to find the waypoint, navigating along the path as best I can. So if we're drawing this line backwards to sort of where we were able to make the left, you can see that mostly it's a left line. Like, it's a little off center here, but for the most part, as we head along that straight left line that we tried to draw, we will get to where we want to go.
I'm not up to that just yet.
All right, here we have a split start. Bottom of the stairs point to the left. The crook of the stairs points to the right. We're going to check for this immediate skip. It's not there. We're going to head to the southeast, and how quickly and how far we can turn downwards is going to determine what layout we're in versus quick queue or the arrow layout. Here, we're able to turn downwards. We can keep going downwards. Eventually, we see, actually, that we get blocked. Now, this is why I've kept mentioning, when we're determining quick queue versus arrow, we want to see how far it allows us to go downwards. In arrow, essentially what happens is we cannot go significantly down. This is maybe about 2 rooms, but in arrow, we cannot go significantly down until we've gone like 5 screens or so. In quick queue, we'll be able to go down significantly, like 3 rooms or so, and then we'll also be able to go to the left once we've done so. Here we get blocked. Now, you can also see this nice little skip here. This is actually one of the shortest versions of the skip I've ever seen. This is the arrow skip. It's kind of cool how that worked out. But nonetheless, we're going to run this as we normally would. So as you can see, as I go back this way, this is a nice little variation on Arrow, where instead of being forced along this path, this long path for 4 to 5 screens, instead we're generally forced along that path, and we can't freely go downwards very much until we're about 4 screens away. So if you look here, right, as we go about 4 screens away, now sort of is when we can start heading downwards pretty freely, and then we're forced to the right again a little bit. And then now we head downwards, and you'll see the big difference between Arrow and Quick U is that essentially you are able to head down and then wrap around a lot sooner than you are in Arrow, and typically Arrow will have that long hallway. Good bit of RNG generation there. That's always nice to see, to explain sort of like the differences and how I would go about reading the layout, despite when things look a little bit cursed. So here we have a split start. We have the bottom of the stairs pointing to the right, the crook of the elbow pointing to the bottom of the stairs pointing to the left, and the crook of the elbow pointing to the right. We'll check for the immediate skip. It's here. Because this immediate skip is here, I'm pretty confident already that this is going to be double wing. Regardless of whether it's double wing or quick U, the read method is essentially the same. We're going to follow the top border of the hallway that we're using to wrap around the entrance all the way around the map to find the waypoint. We will follow that border doggedly and we will get to the waypoint. This is definitely double wing. Now, I'm going to go back after we get through and find the waypoint here and show you just that giant bait area I was talking about. Pretty convenient that I put the portal at the Solaris 2 here instead. So, with a split start, the reason why you never want to try and go right and up is because you run into the potential possibility of being in double wing, and then you go up this long hallway and there is nothing there. It's just a huge giant dead end. You can't connect anywhere useful. Alright, we have a double left layout. Bottom of the stairs point to the left. The elbow landing points to the left as well. We're going to be forced to the northwest. We're going to pay attention to what happens about 3 rooms after the entrance to the northwest. If we can't head left at all, kind of like here, it looks like we can't head left, that means we are going to be in the north line layout. And so we're going to draw a north line upwards and just keep trying to follow doggedly along that line, and we will find the waypoint. Okay, here we have a right Solaris 2 as both the bottom of the stairs and sort of the landing point to the right side. Also, I am above the entrance. That is the only time this happens in any of the starting orientations. If you're above the entrance, you are in the right Solaris 2 layout. As I navigate this, I want to make a giant right V. I'm going to try and adhere to the middle as best as possible as the layout develops. And then after about 7 or 8 screens, or when I get blocked to the southeast, and by blocked, I mean like truly blocked, I can't go like anywhere else further to the southeast, whether it's up or down, I know that I'm supposed to turn up at this point, and then I'll just keep heading upward along the path as best as possible to the northwest, or northeast, excuse me, to find the waypoint. Okay, we have a double left start again. Bottom of the stairs point to the left. The crook, landing, however you want to phrase it, points to the left as well. I'm going to be forced to the northwest for about 3 rooms to pay attention to what happens. This is about 3 rooms. Here I can see that I can continue to the left, which means this is going to be left line. Once I know that, I'm going to draw a line to the left and try and doggedly navigate that way to find the waypoint. So far we have seen a good amount of the layouts. We have seen one double wing. We've seen one arrow layout that had sort of a non-traditional setup. We've seen a quick U. We've seen 2 right stairs. And that's so far so good. I don't know if I mentioned the north line and left line already, but we've seen both of those as well. So here we have a split start. I'm going to check for the immediate skip. It's not there. I'm going to follow this path. I'm going to see when it lets me down. It's taking a while already. That means this is going to be the more traditional generation of the arrow layout. Now I can head downwards. I'm going to check to see if that skip exists. It doesn't. Essentially, if the skip existed, it would be right along this part. It's not here. As I head downwards, I'm just going to hug this left wall doggedly around the map to find Diala and the waypoint. Cool. Let's do a couple more run-throughs. Maybe we'll get another quick U, and then we will call it a day on the guided walkthrough. All right, here we have a split start. I'm going to check for the immediate skip. It is here. When I see the immediate skip, I immediately suspect double wing, regardless of whether it's double wing or quick U, which can also have a little bit of an immediate skip, although the gap is typically longer than this. We're going to follow sort of the top border of the hall that we've just skipped to or wrapped around to under the bottom of the, to the bottom of the entrance. We're just going to follow it doggedly around the map as it develops to find the waypoint. All right, we have a right Solaris 2 because both the bottom of the stairs and the landing or elbow, however you want to phrase it, points to the right as well. And we spawn in above the entrance, i.e. the entrance is below us. That is the only time this happens in any of the starting orientations, so we can instantly identify right Solaris 2. We're going to head downwards along the main path for about 7 to 8 screens until we want to turn up. We also can identify when we want to turn up because there will be a southeast block that we cannot do anything to get around, whether we head to the left or up, or head down, excuse me, not to the left. Now that we see the true southeast block, we're going to head northwest or northeast along it, excuse me, and just keep following it upwards until we find the waypoint. Let's do one last layout. Okay, here we have a split start. I'm going to see if the immediate skips here. It is not. I'm going to head to the southeast, see how long it allows me, or it takes me to be able to head downwards significantly. Here, it's pretty quick. Now, remember, arrow can have that variation where it kind of looks like this, but you'll be forced to the right still some more before you can actually head truly downwards. Whereas quick U will allow us to go to the left and wrap around right away. Here, it looks like this is another variation of sort of how arrow generates, where we don't have that long initial hallway. We see this little book icon, and the only book here is where the skip would usually be, but there's nowhere for us to skip, so the skip's not available. Instead, we're going to keep following this hall to the right, and as I mentioned, right, this is like 4, 5, 6 screens before we can actually head significantly downwards, which will be here. And by significantly downwards, you'll see that I'm heading very downwards. As we can finally turn down, we're just going to hug that left wall of where we turned down around the map as it develops to find the waypoint in Diala. So that is Solaris 2. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you very much for watching.